welcome to my wonderful knitting life. My name is Margaret and I am the host of this channel. This channel is mostly about knitting, but I do like to talk about some of my other crafts and my life as a teacher on the North Shore of the St. Lawrence of Quebec. Sometimes I podcast from Quebec and sometimes I podcast from the family cottage in Ontario. So it's been about a month since I podcasted and I am now back at work. I travel about 15 hours by car to return to the town that I work in. It is a mostly mining town, fishing town. The Navy, I believe, is here as well. I sometimes see them in Walmart. And there's quite a lot of other economic endeavors here, but the focus of this town developing was mining once upon a time and still exists quite a bit today. We also have Indigenous communities around the town. They are of the Innu people, and it is my pleasure to be able to teach some of these children that attend my school. So, what have I been doing since I last podcasted? I do have some notes down below me. I have my camera standing on an ironing board, and I've got some notes down below so that I can remember what I'm going to say. I'm a little bit all over the place today because I was just chasing my dogs down in the backyard. We have a gopher or a groundhog. I'm not sure what those critters are called in your neck of the woods, but it has lived under our deck for many years, and this time of year we see it out and about quite a bit in the backyard. And the dogs know it's there, and they are sniffing all over the place and trying to get under the deck. And they don't like to come back in when they've got the scent of the groundhog. So it's been a little bit of a frustrating morning dealing with them, but they're back in and hopefully they'll stay calm for the time that I'm recording. The videos and pictures that I put at the beginning of the podcast are pictures from my bike rides that I've had the last couple of weekends when there's been some good weather. I've come across a number of things on my bike rides, but two things that have been particularly interesting are something called the metal gardens. I don't really know what they're called, but that's what I assume that they are. And the metal I'm also assuming is iron and aluminum, which are two of the metals that are mined and processed in this region. And these sculptures have been made from that type of metal, and they're really quite amazing. There is also a gated garden where you can go in and walk around, and there's all these mask sculptures that are made out of metal. And I took a little bit of video of that, and I'll add that into the end of the podcast if you're interested. And I also came across something that really caught my eye, and that was a medicinal garden. So all of the plants that are grown in this garden have medical or herbal health properties to them. And I was able to stop and walk around and enjoy that. And I have to say the aroma of the plants was absolutely fantastic. In that garden, there's also an insect house. So there's these little shelves with all of these pieces of wood where there's lots of little holes drilled in. And yes, there were wasps there, and I had the pleasure of one landing on my hand, but he just went on his way, so that was okay. And that was just fabulous. The other thing I came across while I was bike riding along the water, we have beautiful bike paths here. Really lucky. It's very safe to be on the bike paths. There's no cars right next to it, so it can be a beautiful way to enjoy a day here in this region. But the other thing I came across that I hadn't noticed before was a building with a huge mural on it. And I believe it was a pump house or maybe a water treatment plant. And somebody had painted this beautiful mural on the outside of it. And me loving anything crafty and artsy, I had to stop and enjoy that as well. So it's been really fun to have a couple of days where I can get out and do that, because it is starting to change. Right now, we're just expecting a little bit of bad weather to come in. Hurricane Lee is hitting the Atlantic coast. We are further in, even though I'm on the Atlantic coast, we're a little further in than Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. So we're just going to see rain, I think. It's not going to be anything huge, thankfully. All right, so on to the knitting. I was going to wear this today, but it's too warm, it's too humid to put it on. But I wanted to show it to you. This is a finished object, and I finished this, I would say maybe 3 years ago. And it really popped into my mind because I do an online knitting chat, a virtual knitting chat, if you will, with two ladies regularly on every second Thursday. And one of these ladies was showing me this pattern and saying, I've never tried color work, I want to try this cowl. And right away I said, well, I've made that, I'll show you, hold on. So this is the Selbu Cowl. Just check my notes to make sure. Yes, the Selbu Cowl by Inge of the Knitting Traditions podcast. And it is a paid for pattern on Ravelry. It is a beautiful pattern. And if you go and take a look at all of the projects that are in there, you'll see many different colorways. Some people have gone with the background being dark and the color work being light. What I did here was use 3 different colors of purple, one of my favorite colors, and I just ran through those colors in this cowl. It's a beautiful pattern. However, I wouldn't say it's for a beginner for color work because it's a very long repeat, and I never found that I was able to really memorize it while I was working on it. I had to concentrate following the chart pretty closely most of the time. But it is a fairly small project, which is great for starting with, and it's absolutely beautiful. So that is my Selbu Cowl, and I hope to be able to wear it soon. The only thing I would do differently with this, if I was to make it again, and I probably will make it again, is I would use a more rustic yarn. This is not superwash, but it is a much drapier yarn. It's Knit Picks palette, and it's quite a fine fingering, but it's also super drapey. And I find when I wear it, it tends to kind of scrunch down, and I'd like it to stand up more so I can wear it for cross-country skiing or snowshoeing or walking the dogs. But I do have another cowl that I just found hiding in a cupboard, shall we say? Does anybody else have that problem where there's lots of knits hiding everywhere in their house? Yeah. This is a project that my nephew Nate will know because he was the one to pick the yarn. Sorry, I'm dropping things here. This is the ZigZag Cowl that is also by Inge of Knitting Traditions. And you can find that on Ravelry, and I'll link it to the show notes below for you. I am using Yarn-Rauma PT2 for this, and I find that is a much heavier and stickier rustic yarn. I know a lot of people really love it for color work, and I'm finding this fantastic. It already has some more strength, less drapiness to it. So Nate, I am going to try to finish this for you, so hang in there. Maybe this Christmas I'll have it done. But this is a really great one for somebody who wants to try color work for maybe the first time or second time. It is much simpler, not as difficult carrying the floats, and as you can see, the effect is lovely. Very, very nice, and quite unisex too. Would be great for a man or a woman. So I think it's going to turn out really well. So this is the sleeve. This is the Yarn-Rauma Phenol, and this is the taupe tweed colorway, which would be the cream. I'm not sure if I have the other sleeve here. Yarn sleeves for me tend to fall on the floor, and I have a dog who really likes to rip them apart for entertainment. So I don't think I have the other color, but there's a lot of colors with Yarn-Rauma PT2, and it is a fantastic yarn. I really like using that. All right, so that's a whip, and that's a current project. So since I've been back here and back at work, I have found that I have been quite tired at the end of the day. Starting the school year is very busy. We had Meet the Teacher night on Thursday night this past week. My feet are killing me. I was going to go weaving today, but I ended up canceling. I just felt like I needed a day to stay at home and rest and relax and catch up with knitting and all of the rest of the good things like cleaning your house and that sort of thing. So I really gravitated towards much simpler projects, which I find really soothing and meditative when I'm very tired. So the first one I'm going to show you is living in a bag that was gifted to me by a good friend. And it's absolutely gorgeous. I am absolutely in love with this bag. Again, I love purple. Purple and orange are my two favorites. So this is a bag that's made with wool, and I'm a wool lover, so that's just fantastic. And from what I understand, she got it from a company called Antler and Acorn. That's the tag if you're interested in looking it up. And on the back, there is the stamp of approval from the company that makes this wonderful yarn fabric, which is Harris Tweed. It's gorgeous. I just love it. And I really like that it doesn't have a zipper, because I do sometimes use zipper bags, and if you're not careful, they catch your yarn, and that can be really dangerous. So thank you very much, Tracy. I love it. She just told me put something really precious inside of it, and that's exactly what I've done. So this project here, I started in the last 3 weeks. I started it when I got back here. And this is the beginning of my rocket tee. So I had mentioned that I was going to do this in the last podcast, but I actually have it now on the go. And it is the softest thing ever. I love the color. I'm a big teal lover as well. That tends to pop up in my wardrobe quite a bit. It's a V-neck, top-down t-shirt, and it has this beautiful yarn over lace on the raglan. So that makes a really nice little effect. The pattern also says you can do it down the sides of the t-shirt. I'm not going to do that. I just separated the sleeves I put them on this wonderful pony cord stuff, and I just did that. So now all I really need to do is knit all the way down to the bottom with the stripes that I've started. And the yarns that I'm using for this are fingering weight. This pale color here is the Bar à Tricot yarn that I mentioned in the last podcast. And this is a silk and mohair mix, and it is gorgeous to knit with. I'm not sure if you can see the halo on that, but it's just so soft, amazing. And what I'm pairing it with is a yarn that I got a year ago at the Twist Festival. I've been twice. So I got the Bar à Tricot Champagne line is what it's called, that beautiful silk mohair fluffy yarn. I got that at Twist this year, and that is the Marlin color if you're interested in that colorway. So again, that's that one. And the year before, I picked up a skein, this skein right here, which is merino with a little bit of silk in it. And that's a Julie Asselin hand-dyed yarn. And I'll see if I can find the spelling of her name and put that in the show notes. Again, I looked for the yarn sleeve for that, but I think one of my dogs enjoyed that as a little toy for a while because I can't find it. The yellow, which I plugged in there because I wasn't quite sure if I was going to have enough yarn, so I thought if I broke it up with something else, it might sort of stretch my yardage a little further. That is a Cascade Heritage Wave sock yarn. So I don't know how it's going to block. I hope it's not going to stretch too much because I do like the size. I tried it on. That's the wonders of knitting top down and those pony cords that we can put everything on. But it seems to be fitting great. I'm not going to finish the sleeves off right here, which a lot of people have. I'm going to knit down and make a little bit of a sleeve with a cuff. I tend to like that, kind of like this. I didn't make this, by the way. This is a bot sweater. But something a little bit more like that. I find that that's more wearable for spring and fall, just having a little bit of a sleeve. But I'm really in love with this. I love the colors. I love the feel of it. And it's well written and a very relaxing, straightforward knit. So enjoying that very, very much. My next project is a redo project. Sometimes it's, as my daughter said, Mom, you always said, if you're not enjoying it or something is bugging you, rip it out because it's going to bug you forever. And that really is what happened with this project. I was part of a Botanic Shawl knit along with two girlfriends. And this is a pattern by Stephen West, who is very well known in the knitting world. His Cowl, his mystery knit, is coming up very soon. There's a lot of hype about that going on. So this is the Botanic Shawl. And what happened with this is I knit the entire shawl up to the border, and it increases really quickly. So what I really ended up was with this very wide triangle, and I was running out of the colored yarn, which is a Zauberball 100, the fingering weight Zauberball. And the cream is a Holst cone of Supersoft, just in case you were wondering. I've talked about this before because I pretty much knit the whole shawl minus the border. But the shawl was too short to wrap around, which is how I like to wear my shawls, is really just more like a scarf, a bulky, all bunched up around my neck, which keeps me really warm when the wind is blowing and it's cold. And so it ended up being too short and way too wide. And my friend who had knit the whole thing, and I think she has a bit of a looser gauge, hers was basically hitting the calves of her legs because it had become so wide. When I had been reading about this pattern in the very beginning, I had noticed a few very smart people on Ravelry saying that if you wanted a skinnier, longer knit, probably would be a good idea to do every other increase. And I thought, well, that's a really good idea. But I kind of got going on it and didn't really think about it. I just followed the pattern and thought, well, maybe this will be different for me. It'll all work out. Well, no, it didn't work out. And I put it in a corner. When something doesn't work out, I have to kind of give it a moment, think about it so I know where I want to go next. Not rip out right away, because sometimes when I go back, the error or the thing that I didn't like, I don't even notice it when I go back and look a second time. But this definitely was not working for me. So I took it to the cottage in the summer. And just before I came back, my daughter and I just sat outside on the deck, and one of us held the Zauberball, one of us held the Holst, and we ripped the whole thing right back to the beginning. I was debating ripping halfway back and then just knitting straight and then decreasing on the other side. And I just thought, no, I'm going to start over. I'm going to start right over from the beginning. I'm going to do every other increase, which basically meant when I have a color row, I do the increase there, and I never increase with the solid color, for those of you who might be interested in giving this a try. That was basically my strategy of what I did. And it seems to be working. I'm kind of contemplating now what I'm going to do as I go, because I'm really happy with this. I'm not sure if I'm going to just keep going with the recipe of the increases so that I get a really big asymmetrical triangle. The other thought that I had was to keep weighing my Zauberball and get to the halfway point, and then on the other side, decrease back down so that I have more in the middle, kind of like the way the Sophie scarf would work, and then just decrease back down on the other side so that the ends are both the same. And I'm not sure yet, because I'm definitely not at the halfway point. I've got quite a bit more to go, so we'll see how that works. That's my plan. I'll have to make that decision when I get to the halfway mark. But this again is a very, very straightforward knit, but with a beautiful effect. So this would be great for a beginner that has some experience and would like to try something that kind of looks color workish, but you're never knitting with more than one color. So you've got a little bit of slip stitches going on. Both sides have a beautiful, beautiful finished I-cord edge look to them. So the finished look of this is just wonderful. I'm really impressed with that. And really want to wear it. I'm hoping I can get this finished by the time real winter hits, and I'll go from there. But you know, both of those projects, they may be more simple than what I normally work on, but that's what I need right now. I need something that's not going to really be too difficult at the end of a day, that's on my feet all day and all of that stuff. My jacket is behind me right here, my 𝐊𝐍𝐈𝐓𝐿 jacket. I'm still working on it. I've put the buttons in, so that's really nice. The one thing I'm a little concerned about right now are the shoulders. There is, now let me see, what would it be called? Like an interfacing or placket over the raw edges from the steeking there. And it's kind of giving a bit of a shoulder pad look to it. And I'm not finding that I like that very much. So I'm debating ripping that out. I can do that from the inside. Sounds like I'm just ripping everything out today. But I just really want this jacket to be all that it should be, because it was a long knit. It was a wonderful knit, but I don't want to put so much work into something and then not get a wearable item at the end. So sometimes little tweaks and adjustments have to be made along the way. Our bodies are all different, and we have to work with that. So that's still happening. I'm just trying to decide right now what I'm going to do with the shoulders. And over here, this is a shawl that I talked about in a previous episode. I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's called the Playtime Shawl. So if you're interested in what that is, that's in past episodes, but that's what's going on right there. So future knits, I did bring back one kit that I have at the cottage. For those of you who are new here, I am trying to move back to the family cottage in Ontario. So I'm doing a lot of cleaning up, a lot of sorting, and very slowly getting as much as I can back to Ontario so I don't have to get a really big moving company to come here and move me, because I'd far rather spend my money on yarn than I would on a moving truck. I'm sure most of you would agree with that. So I did bring back another kit that I had from Sidsel Hoivik, and the kit that I brought back is called the Albertine Jacket. So I'll just get a picture of that here for you. I want to cover up as much as I can of the instructions. So this is a glorious purple colorwork sweater, and I haven't started it, but I did bring the yarn back, and I did start looking for the right size needles. I kind of made a rule in my head that if I don't have an available 𝐄𝐻𝐒 needle, because they're all in use, then I'm not allowed to cast anything else on. But I'm not sure if I'm going to hold to that rule. We'll see. We make these rules, but sometimes we don't follow them in the end. But I did bring the kit back, and I have all of the yarn in Ziploc bags to keep it nice and safe. So these are all the beautiful colors. You'll see in the photocopy that it almost looks blue. But Sidsel wrote me a little note and she said, I'm really sorry about the photocopy. Purple is a really difficult color to print. I didn't know that, but seems to be true. So these are the colors. This would be the darkest one, okay? And I am really excited to start working on this, but I don't want to take on too much at the same time because I am really busy with work and I get frustrated if I can't get to all of my projects and knit them, which is another reason why I decided to stay home today. I've got some sewing to do, some repairs, and sometimes I just need to get things done. I did buy the buttons that came with the kit because there was no way I was going to find such a beautiful match on my own. This is a mother of pearl purple button to go with the jacket. And Sidsel's projects often have bead and sequins on them. So there are purple sequins and then there's these little pearl-like beads that go on in certain places on the jacket afterwards. It is a lot of added work, but if you take a look at her projects on her site, 𝐂𝐀𝐒𝐿, you'll see that it's just incredible, the embellishments, what they do to her jackets. By the way, I'm not sponsored by anyone. I just really like her work, and I would be quite happy to promote it because I think she's an amazing designer. Quite a few people commented after I did my last video and I showed my daughter's jacket and they said, well, they're gorgeous, but I'd never be able to do any of that. It looks too difficult. But Sidsel does easier projects and she also does sweaters, like pullover sweaters. So they're not all steeped with the button bands and the collars. And yes, that can be quite overwhelming. But at the same time, I'm not an expert. I've had to just take my time, read the instructions carefully. Sometimes I've had to look things up to find out more information about what she's asking. But I found it very, very straightforward. And she is on, let me see, she's definitely on Instagram. I can't remember if yes, she is on Facebook. And there's kind of like a group you can ask questions to. And she often will write her answers and other people will too. So there's lots of support. But her pullover sweaters are beautiful and would be simpler than taking on a jacket to start with. And my daughter is making one of the pullovers. It's beautiful. It's yellow. And I think it's called Sidsel or something like that. I need to take pictures of where she is so far. She's knit everything up to, it's a bottom up. So she's knit up to where the sleeves would be put in and she's now working on the sleeves. But she wants to make sure she has both sleeves done and she gets a pretty good idea of how long she wants to make those sleeves. It's a drop sleeve. So she'll be able to knit all the way up and then, you know, sort of pin and see how long she wants those sleeves before all is said and done. But I think those projects would be more than manageable for an experienced beginner or an intermediate knitter. And it's just fun to look at her website because I tend to gravitate towards the artsy kind of knitting things. And that's why I like crochet too, because it kind of has a hippie look to it, which I really like. All right, so the last thing I wanted to talk about were some podcasters that I've come across in the last few months, especially in the summer. In the summer, a lot of podcasters, they don't put any videos out or any episodes. And I have been really watching a lot of new podcasters, or maybe podcasters that haven't had as much publicity as the big ones. You know, the ones who have, I don't know, 50,000 subscribers and tons of views. So I've been watching some smaller channels, and I have to say this has been so much fun. I have run across people all over the world. In that, I've learned about different yarns, different knitting techniques, patterns I'd never heard of. So I just wanted to share 3 that I have been watching quite a bit. So I'll go in order of when I found them. The first one is called Quail's Knitting Nest, and the host is Joy. Her name is Joy. She's from the United States, and sometimes she has guests. I've seen her go to an alpaca farm. Sometimes she shares a little bit about like a fiber fest that's going on. And I started watching her last March when I had pneumonia and I was stuck at home for quite a few days. I was not feeling very good. The thing that really caught my eye with Joy was her episodes early on, because I was researching this whole idea of getting a master's in hand knitting. So there is a course or a 3-part program where you can actually get your master's certificate or diploma in hand knitting. And Joy completed the whole thing. It is an enormous undertaking. And she went through her binders and showed everything that she had to do, the process. And I think she was doing a lot of this when the pandemic hit, and she was sharing her experience with this. She is also a knitter who does a lot of color work. So she's done quite a lot of the beautiful, well-known color work projects, and she has a lot of really good techniques to share. So Joy, thank you so much for Quail's Knitting Nest. I have thoroughly enjoyed your channel. It's been wonderful. The second podcaster that I've been watching for a little while, probably about 5 or 6 months, is a lady by the name of Sophie from New Brunswick, Canada. And I'm also in Canada, so I connected with her on that level. And her channel is called Cozy Meadow Knits. And she's just the sweetest thing. She has the most elegant knits. She's a joy to watch, very relaxing. I feel like I'm just sitting with a girlfriend and enjoying conversation with them while I knit. And she also really likes to do color work and wonderful shawls. So Sophie, great job. Keep it up, and I'll keep watching. I love your channel. The last podcaster is somebody I came across just in the last week, and I cannot stop watching her videos. I apologize for saying your name wrong, but this is 𝐊𝐿𝐿 from South Africa. I would say 𝐊𝐿𝐿 because that's how we would pronounce that name in Canada, but that's not how she pronounces her name. It's 𝐿𝐿𝐿. And her channel is made by 𝐊𝐿𝐿. And she is so happy and so positive. I just love watching her. She also gave me the idea of putting knits over my messy craft room to make my podcast look nicer. So thank you, 𝐊𝐿𝐿, for that. That's a great hint. And she is a prolific knitter, incredible amount of material in her videos if you go back and watch them. She also is really interested in the Stephen West M-Cowls or mystery knits. And you can take a look at her past experiences with that on her channel. But she sort of made me think, because I don't know about you guys, but last year's mystery knit along was called Twist and Turns. And there were mixed reviews on that. I'm not sure that it would be one that I would wear myself. The style of it might not lend itself to what I would like. However, there have been a few that the colors have worked really nicely. So, you know, as I see more, I'm seeing different aspects to that shawl. However, her take on it was very different from what I've heard before. She says, it doesn't really matter what the end product looks like because this is the cheapest masterclass you're going to get anywhere. Stephen West puts out the most amazing videos that go along with the mystery knit along. He does not make the pattern very expensive, so everybody, you know, can afford to join. And she said the techniques that she learns from this are just outstanding. Sometimes she likes the end product, but she just thoroughly enjoys the camaraderie, the tutorials that are put out, and for her, it is an amazing learning experience. So I thought, well, yeah, that's a really interesting way of looking at it, because that's something I really like about knitting, is always learning something new. And I generally pick projects that have aspects to them that are unique and different. And I don't tend to knit the same thing over and over and over, except for when I'm really tired, like I am in September as a teacher, an elementary teacher. So thank you, Yaelin of South Africa. I will add your information in my show notes, and hopefully I'll be able to send some people over to your channel to give it some love, and people will hopefully enjoy it as much as I am. I'm hoping this afternoon to sit down and watch another episode. So that's it for now for this update. If you have enjoyed my content today and feel like you'd like to watch more, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. That does help the channel analytics. And as it stands right now, I am getting close to that 1,000 subscriber mark. So I am hoping to prepare a prize. I am going to purchase a local yarn dyer skein of yarn as the prize. I've talked about this before, so it's not new, but that is what I'm hoping to do, because I feel like that would be a really nice thing, unique, to have a prize of a yarn dyer from our northern area. And I have a shawl cuff that I made at the camp I went to this past summer to add to that prize. So it would be great if you could subscribe and I could get that prize out to someone. Anyway, until next time, which will probably be later in October, I wish you well. Thank you for watching and happy knitting, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.